we agree what they are, and that's in the report, right? You want me to state them?
They're not all special.
Terrific.
But they are stated, 3 listed plants, if you're referring to sandplain, blue-eyed grass, purple needle grass, and northern blazing star, is that what
Are
you're?
the 3 plants
Yeah.
that are listed as protected by national heritage.
And then there's some others that
And we agree that, in the letter, that the sandplain grassland, 29.8 acres, are an S1 has status. That's agreed to. So I just want to be clear that the plants that are of special concern are not rare. So we're not saying that, so I want to make sure that that's clear. These are not rare plants that you identify.
Are you asking me a question?
Yes, well, I'm asking the group, but...
She would be the one to answer
Yes,
scientific questions.
excuse me. So are they rare?
They are listed species. That's how natural heritage considers them. And they have different levels of rarity. So there is threatened, endangered, and special concern. When a plant is delisted or is waiting to be listed, it goes on the watch list. So the other species that you mentioned earlier, such as Asclepia, the butterfly weed, and the Crocanthamum demosum, bushy rock rose, and the little lady's tresses, those are all watch listed species. Crocanthamum demosum and little lady's tresses and the butterfly weed have all been listed by the state and then delisted down to the watch list species, and they still remain on the watch list species. They do not have protection from Natural Heritage and the Endangered Species Act.
Okay, I'm going to take umbrage with calling those rare. The beautiful thing about Microsoft Word is you could put in the document 321 CMR 100 and search for the word rare. And the only place rare, it occurs sporadically in the regulation, but the only place rare does come is the next level up of the species. Species of special concern, and then the hierarchy threatened. And I could give you that page. Adam.
In the memorandum we sent you, did we use the word rare?
Well, no, but I want to clarify, because these plants are not rare. It's only threatened does 321 CMR 10.0 talks about rare. The director shall list as threatened any species of plants or animal likely to become an endangered species within the foreseeable future throughout all or a significant portion of its range, and any species declining or rare as determined to biological research. The word rare is not mentioned in...
That's why we didn't use it.
Okay.
Purple needle grass is done.
Okay, so...
Just clarifying.
Okay. Well, that's good information. Purple needle grass is threatened because they're not saying that on this document. Ooh, purple needle grass. All right, I'll go back and look at that.
Sure.
Let's see. So, I just want to point out any consistency so the commissioners can make the correct.
Bill, you are aware, though, that in Julie's report, you read over the memorandum?
Yes.
Okay. That it states that it's crucial to protect not only individual species and populations, but the integrity of the habitat they occupy, so that they can migrate and reestablish in the competitive environment of a grassland. So, just so we're talking about the entire grassland, sandplant grass is being protected.
Right. So what I wound up doing was getting this from the Harvard New England Wildlife Flower Society, their document, and talks about the sandplain grassland, and talks about rare plants, and it says I have a copy for you, due to their relatively limited extent, primarily along the coastal plain, sandplain habitats contain a disproportionately high number of rare and specialized plant species. Overall, 52 globally or regionally rare plant species occur in sandplain habitats in New England. 12 taxa are listed as globally rare. And it goes on to mention other things, so I just wanted to bring that out. So in terms of the memorandum from the staff, you talk about fragmentation. And then you talk about our request for a crossover, 6 feet wide, and you bring it to the highest level of fragmentation. I'm going to suggest that this is really fragmented. A walking path across, and I'm showing you.
You're saying the highway is fragmentation.
I mean, that is the
Not
level.
the turkeys.
I mean,
You mean roadways and.
roadways,
Yeah.
not a walking path this wide that would clear up a lot of problems. And I really think that natural heritage, I'm going to ask you to submit to them 2 walking paths, because they are the permitting body. So I would really be confident that they would be approved, but maybe I'm reading something wrong here. But I don't believe, so we disagree on, I respectfully disagree on taking the argument that crossovers are fragmentation and will be so extremely harmful, knowing that those paths.
Fragmentation is probably the least of the concerns with the crossover paths for me.
Okay, well, that was in
It's
the.
one of them, but there are lots of reasons.
The biggest concern is that we'll no longer be able to use it as a taxiway or an airplane or for the planes. And one of the reasons I feel that this exists as a grassland habitat is because for many, many years, I don't know how many years Carolyn Cullen managed it, it has remained open of fragmentation. And that's one of the reasons it exists, and it ought to be maintained as such.
We do agree that our crossovers are not fenced. We didn't propose fences on either side of the crossovers like was written. We're just talking about the ability to open a gate and walk across, like has been going on for 75 years.
How would you keep people from straying into the grassland?
Well,
You have
we're-
dogs on
What, no,
leashes.
what,
Yeah, how do you propose that?
Well,
Because if you put the crossovers and you somehow don't gate that all up, then won't people just be kind of
well, we're
drawn
gonna,
into the
dog might
grassland
run
with
into
the
it.
dogs, and you might throw, that's, I think, the reason for the fencing that would have to happen is because you'd have to stop.
we are going by the Landbank's own opinion that the dogs may run there, continue with their owner back on the trail.
But
I
you
mean-
have this idea that you present it as if the people were walking all over the grasslands, and they were.
Oh, I'm not saying
And
they
so-
weren't. I'm
So
not
when you
saying that.
open the gates, there's nothing to keep that from happening again. And we
and we know
tried,
that.
faith in
And
the people.
history has taught us
and we
that.
had an attendant there,
We
and she
stopped.
couldn't control it with a paid controller. I mean, we really tried to accommodate, make it work without a fence, as you know, and it became clear we couldn't keep people off it without a fence. And that's what
And we feel that
happened.
there are other smaller routes people can take without needing that. So we have stated our reasons here and we're sticking with them.
Well, I don't think you've been on the record of what your reason is yet, except now, because you're the peers, you don't do accept the whole thing, because I'm going to point out a couple of more nuances that I hope you could keep an open mind about. And we had talked about opening up the inside and not being pushed into the woods, and that was not addressed for safety reasons. And I have this photo again of that portion, and no one would ever one other point, and I'm going to go back to the New England Wildflower Society 2015 document about sampling grasslands. And I had mentioned at the last meeting, and it wasn't really addressed, in my written proposal, but it was stated here, that if you were to open up the Hardhaven side, if you were to do the crossovers, if you were to bring the fence back, you would be removing certain, a percent or 2% or 3% of the sampling grasslands, and you may be required in the other 40 acres to create additional or double the amount that you remove. So one other approach, it states, when it's talking about sampling grasslands, is, here's the whole article for you guys, about sampling. One other approach is to create, and this is under managements needed to sustain the habitat which we're talking about today. Another approach is to create new sandplain communities and habitats with appropriate edaphic conditions. Recent modeling has identified many areas on Martha's Vineyard, Mass, with features conducive to supporting new grasslands and heathlands. Establishing new communities adjacent to existing communities can buffer them and create corridors between isolated patches. Since many sandplain assemblages are already man-made formations, it is reasonable to consider the activity of creating or expanding by creating new ones. So that really wasn't addressed, that we could create more sandplain grassland.
And where might that be?
Well, actually it was.
Yep.
Because remember last meeting, we said, we talked about maybe trying to clear some of the woods. We talked about clearing the woods and to make sand plains there, but we couldn't because of the pine trees. And I don't know, Julie, do you want to talk about any of the, we do have heathlands and sand plains and other properties, land bank properties that we take care of and
We do.
are before too.
And when we put forth the last management plan, the public that came to that hearing did not want some of the woodland even, we had proposed that in that management plan in a draft before it was finally decided on, and the public weighed in and felt that cutting any of the woods would affect the ability of that area to filter water, and it is a well water area. And so the woods, removing any of the woods and expanding the grassland was taken out. I will point out that in all of Oak Bluffs, Tradewinds is the only sampling grassland that's protected by natural heritage as a priority habitat. And most of the land in Oak Bluffs that's priority habitat is on one of the Landbank's properties. The Landbank has conserved a lot, and there's not much in Oak Bluffs that's designated as priority habitat. So what they do have, they really value.
I can speak to the creation out there, just where the fence actually went, although it made a little bit of a management challenge to have to, as the first walkers saw, walk on the outside of the fence and get the surface safe and usable. We actually gained around the perimeter a whole swath of grassland by fencing out what was former paths. And that kind of substrate, that kind of disturbed zone is exactly what they're talking about, having a potential to turn to sand plain. So we've actually gained more potential for sand plain grasslands with this intervention on the property.
The further you fenced us out, the more sand plain. That doesn't help us.
I reached out to William Patterson, Professor Emeritus Patterson, who did this study with Gretel Clark in 2006 of the forest trails in the state forest, which we have 5,000 acres of, right? And I'm waiting to hear back from Gretel, but we don't have any forested sand plain trails in Oak Bluffs. You said there's no other sand plain grasslands in Oak Bluffs, and the forest doesn't go into Oak Bluffs, and so I'm a little confused there. But the reason I reached out to him was
She has a map of the priority
No,
habitat.
in the boundary of Oak Bluffs, this is the only sand plain grassland that's designated as priority habitat, is what I said.
Okay, but there is grassland, sand plain grassland in the state forest.
Which is not in Oak Bluffs.
Just not.
None of it.
We don't have any of it.
You don't have any state
No, the
forest
line's
in
right
Oak Bluffs?
here.
No,
Wow, seems like it's in Oak Bluffs. Can I go
I'm sorry.
there?
no, every town in Bluffs.
Can I look at the
Yeah,
maps,
that's
those public maps that you're looking at, what Julie just showed me? Or
Julie, do you want to just
Do I have
talk
a copy of-
about the habitat maps at all?
Sure, they're online. You can go to Natural Heritage, to their website, and you can pull it up, and it shows the most recent
Yeah.
habitat
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ms.
maps. I can tell you that
Thank you.
from all of the past maps that I have, Tradewinds Fields Preserve has been listed as a priority habitat. The oldest priority habitat map I have is from 1997. It has consistently been of concern to Natural Heritage. That
We try to do things to make the properties useful. But where we have to conserve rare species that need to be protected from being trampled, it's difficult to see how we could do that without, how we could do that given the
Do
history
you
of
ever
it, I
think
should say.
about just trying to compromise a little bit with us?
I think that we hear you and sympathize,
Very much.
but don't feel we have the right to do that with this land being conservation land. We'd like to be friendlier, we would like to have, it took us 15 years to convince the users to obey the rules. And even then, it didn't always work. And it's unfortunate, but even though we sympathize, we cannot accommodate. And
You
that's
don't
the
feel
end of
that
it.
a pathway could not ever, in your wildest dreams.
No, but we can make shorter loops for you.
Can I just, you have the floor for a second? At some point, I'd like to hear from staff, and I'd like our staff to give their recommendations for changes that they're working on based on what they're hearing from all of you. Your concerns have been taken into consideration, and I think we've all been out there now. I've been out there now a couple times, by myself once and with my husband once, and walked the entire thing, kept thinking in terms of what you were telling us, what's happened, what happened to our place. And what I hear from all of you is that you lost an ability to socialize, to be more, and that it's a place you come, you have your dogs know each other, you socialize. There were some shorter paths that you were able to kind of cross over to get to your friends. I mean, we all heard that.
And that's so important in today's world.
And I understand that.
that.
So we came back, and in some of our discussions, talking with James and talking amongst ourselves and the staff, what could we do? Even when I was out there with my husband, I was saying, what can we do? I saw where the little chairs were. What can we do to bring back some place that becomes a meeting place, a socialization place, we're not, I don't think any of us here want to open up the field again to you. I went back and I read reams of stuff on city and urban dog parks. How you put together a dog park, what does a dog park include? So I understand it more. I'm not a dog person, but I wanted to understand it from your perspective. And before we get too far into this, I'd like Julie and Ian to be able to give their analysis and what their recommendation is, because we thought there may be a place to open up some space. It won't be the grassland, but open up some space, brush cut some stuff, create. Ian has.
Let them do it.
Okay, just make your presentation to see what. At least let people, and if you listen and kind of listen with open ears, maybe we can come to some compromise.
If I could hope that you all would approach this with some sort of a, humane,
Why don't you listen?
They are.
well, then I'm delighted.
Do you want to take
Yeah.
our input first, or do you want to hear this?
Well, it's about something that was already mentioned. It's quick. It's
Okay.
quick. And then I'm Ann, and we were talking about going through the woods, etc. I have no problem going through the woods. I don't go early in the morning. I don't go late at night. I made a mistake to go to the Vineyard Haven Dog Park at 4 o'clock because I was in Vineyard Haven, and by the time I came out, there were 3 cars with guys in it vaping away, so I said, well, I'm not going to do that. What was nice about the path by the woods, instead of going through the woods, does everybody know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a picture.
Okay, that nice sandy strip was, I didn't have to spend the whole time looking down. Because going through the woods, and you can't do anything about the roots. All your properties have roots. But this one, and that's why I think it's just, to me, too bad you couldn't give us any of that sandy part. So we did have just one,
So if you're coming from the trailhead parking, which almost everybody does now, the main trailhead area, often the most used path really is right to that point, I would say. Some people do go here, some people go there, and that's why we like to have a diversity of options. But right here where you come out is where the green chairs have been historically, at least since my time, and seems to already be a place. So work with what we have as far as what's working. So we've identified an area here, which you've probably seen, that has some history of previous management, so I can tell by what's growing there it has been mown before. And it's a spot into the woods there, where, at least from my professional opinion, I see the potential to open it up further. There are oaks in there and pitch pine. We have more leeway with working with the oaks as far as removal or trimming up. It provides a nice aspect to the expanse of the field from there. We would be able to kind of set back a bit of a gathering area, keep it mown regularly so you'd have space. Right now I have the guys in the shop designing and building a prototype for a handmade benches with backs. We've never built benches with backs before. This would be the first time. So it would be a way to have a place where there's benches with backs, a place to sit, a place that's mown, and we probably even make a nice split rail. I know another fence, it doesn't sound exciting, but just a way to sort of define the space loosely. You're not gonna be in your own fenced area. It'll be open to come and go on either end, but it's a way to let people who are just walking between the fence. So this is a different plan here, that whole green area. So you usually come out here, so we'd set benches in, we would try to prune up and open up in this direction, keep it mown, and then so you have grassland expanse, view shed, a place to kind of step aside and gather, a good meeting point, benches, leave some trees for shade, manage some trees for views. I mean, as far as working with what I have, this is what I identify as a solid possibility. Everything we do here, which probably everybody knows now, requires permitting, but this is from what's on the ground, what I see a potential. One side note that's related and unrelated, I just do want everybody here, and I think you all are aware that we're not just waiting to do things there. Every week I have guys out there string trimming both sides of the fence, cutting the surface, checking on things, new markers, dog waste stations, grading the road in so it's not bumpy. So we do care, we're gonna be there no matter what the outcome is. It's just, I know the fence is a big change, but from what I can see on the ground, this isn't gonna offer everything in the proposal, but I think this does at least, it's a step, a solid step in the right connection for community and place to be together on the property.
You know, one thing I'm just noticing about that, that's probably part of your thinking, is that that gives those who wish to gather and socialize a place to do it without impeding the progress of those who just
That's
want to go,
egress.
or
Yeah, of
if
course.
there are any runners who don't actually have a dog, they just
There are
want
a
to
lot of
run on a
runners.
bed.
A lot of runners, a lot of bikers,
So,
bikers.
And that, for them, it would be helpful to have the group moved a bit off.
Oh, yeah.
and away
The dog
from that. That would
walkers,
be
is
useful
hot.
too.
They've,
Yeah.
I have one question about that. I agree with you. I mean, I thought sitting up there, that would be wonderful if you could do that, but
Jack, this is Jack.
Jack Rowski, so in the original master plan years ago, it had proposed a viewing station out where the runways meet. It was supposed to be like 100 yards out, so people could sit and watch the planes take off. And I mean, this is, and I can remember one time, I think there was a bench out there.
Yeah,
So if you could do what you're saying, and I think brush cutting, I don't know if you need approval for brush cutting, but if you could move the fence out a little bit
well, this,
from the existing
yeah.
fence, so it comes all around here, and then do the brush cutting and maintain the grass and wood chip it.
I think we're speaking of a very similar thing. The idea would be view shed from there.
Right.
And frankly, actually, where the fence goes out here, you've probably seen where it takes that corner, there's actually
There's
There
at
is a
least
view.
50
I mean,
feet between the
yeah.
edge of the
There's
woods and the fence.
Right.
So although I'm not drawing it that way, if you think of it contextually, this actually is part of a
So
larger area.
this would be the area you're talking about, thinning out and brush cutting, this whole green?
Well, and hopefully, you know, when I'm doing, so I have maintenance rotations, right? And then
Yeah, no,
so
I-
you would be mowing.
I think that would really work. 'cause
And
I-
Ian, along
How
the
big is
entire
this
trail,
cottage? Is it like 4 or
isn't the
5 car
plan,
lengths?
Can we try
No,
to,
it's
can we
just
try
like
to,
One comment, let someone else.
isn't the plan, Ian, to then, for those people, and I understand some people don't want to do the whole thing, or they might get tired. And would you explain the plan, hearing that concern, how benches could be placed in different
I will.
areas?
So things, like I was saying, there's things we're doing weekly, which I hope is noticed and we care about, and I try to be as receptive as possible. But things that are planned, and they were in our response to this, if you get a chance to look at it, as well as this grouping of benches, which was always a plan, I just hadn't articulated a full design there, that there would be a grouping of benches there, and then at different points along the property, different rest points and different vantage points. So if you did an out and back, let's say, you would have a destination. You go to that bench and you know, or if you're doing the whole thing, you'd have multiple rest points. It's about 1.3 miles if you leave from right here and walk the entire thing, which I understand is a walk, but you know, with strategically paced benches, you either make the choice to go out and back or you stop at the benches along the way. So that's one thing. You've probably noticed people in the grassland hand pulling spotted knapweed. I've put about 6 full man-hour days of 2 to 4 people hand pulling spotted knapweed in the grassland, which is an invasive, you'll see the purple flowers out there. So we're really working hard, and this is a multi-year process. We'll be doing this for 3 to 5 years or more to make an impact on that population. Of course, you've seen the dog waste stations, which will be strategically locating better so you still have access to them, but we can keep up on keeping them empty and maintained for an attractive and functioning site. And then, of course, I'm always trying to work on the surface and the wayfinding. And trail design, when you put in a trail, it would be wonderful. It's not like paving a road and it's done. There's kind of a back and forth of you put in the trail and then you count on users to use it and then you return and then you count on users and then, so it is a process. And that's something we'll be continuing to focus on. And I also, you've probably noticed at the hangar, we've put in mesh wire from where I thought it was most dangerous to those cedars to there along the split rail. So if a dog went out, they wouldn't run into it. I'd like to continue it all the way to there potentially. I'd also like to protect that edge, and I'd also like to protect the split rail there. So that's in my management notes for the future as well. And then of course just ongoing vegetation and invasive management from keeping that fence. I know it's hard for people, for me to say it's a nice fence, but it was well installed, and I don't want it with invasives to either compromise the grassland or compromise the view. So we'll be working on that And then just in general, the trailhead as a place that's, you can drive in, it's predictable. I think, there's parking spaces there. The surface is good, and we'd have updated information at the trailhead. So those are our management trajectories that connect to this proposal, if it was to happen, but, are happening regardless.
Can I ask you about the material that you're using underfoot? What is that called? I'm sorry, I forgot.
We've really only used wood chips.
Wood chips,
So we
yeah.
use it in
Wood chips
situ
are
in
kind.
place.
Are they are they necessary? Because they're not that easy to walk on, frankly.
They will, again, that process I talked about of settling in, the reason I like them is because if we did have to manage or do cuttings on the edge of the trail, we're able to use them right in place. So I'm not taking anything from outside. And so the things that are joining the water table and everything are just the same things from the site.
So they could be off in a little pile.
They should kind of settle in with more tread and more time. But that's really, the only thing we've used there is wood chips and close grinding of any stumps. But again, just a little bit of patience. I think with use, you've probably already seen the condition. It's us work, and then actually it's your work, it's your feet. It helps to kind of balance the trail.
Yes, sir.
Oh, hi. My name's Norman Axelrod. I addressed this group last time. I've listened to all this, and I read Julie's, Miss Russell's report, and I have some specific questions that I try to address with her and with the group. But when I go back, I look and I hear, and I've been there 17 years, and I have seen what I described last time as the center of the merge of the runway and the taxiway that people were gathering for years. And it had some damage in my mind. Forget whether it was protected species or not. The sand plains had damage. This group was asked, the community was notified, hey, this is really a problem. This has to stop. And it did change dramatically. Maybe not perfectly, but dramatically. And I know there are pictures of before and after, and the sand plains have restored to some degree in the area that had the most damage. But when I look at I don't know how many acres the property is, I view it as a exceptionally healthy total with some areas that are of great concern. There were paths particularly by Farm Neck, but not everywhere in this 200, how many acres is it?
71.9.
72 acres. And I guess the reaction that I get is that we went from having no fence and specific areas that really needed attention with signs that didn't get the compliance that you wanted to now a pen that surrounds the entire area. And it just feels like a very, very big jump to go from where it was before to where it is today. I'll finish and then I'll try to answer. And I contend that the majority of this 72 acres does not show any damage whatsoever from people here, or dogs, or riders, or bikes. The majority is respected. And then when I look at, I'll now address specifics. When I look at what I call the pipe area, which is near Farm Neck and wraps around to the back of Hardhaven. In that area, the vegetation has changed from the photography that's right there. It is no longer mowed. It has grown into a point that nobody would walk in that area. It is not natural anymore. If you've walked there, you'll know what I mean. There's no one walking in those areas. And from that pipe all the way over to where the split rail fence is, there is not a single piece of evidence that suggests that people have damaged the area, with one minor exception, that being one little pathway from Farm Neck over, which is easy to put a split rail fence. And so what I'm saying to this group when it relates to that, I think it's number C in Julie's comments. There is no evidence of human destruction. The vegetation has changed. It is not a sand plains vegetation. And by putting at Hardhaven this fence with a gate, we have now directed every pilot and its passengers to go to a specific gate. And I contend that before, by having it open, they didn't walk in a concentrated area. Now with a gate, and I'd ask Julie to comment on this, we have told pilots to get out of that corner, and that's the corner, I live there, I live at Farm Neck. That's the corner that the pilots park at. That's the corner that they walk out at. They're now going to walk out at a gated section, which I would contend is going to direct traffic to one point as opposed to open it up. So I'd suggest, and I'd like the response, give me a chance to finish. So I'd suggest that from those areas, there is very little evidence that people are going off the path. They have respected that portion of the path differently than they have respected the part that is near the entryway.
So, yeah, I can speak to that. You're speaking this area over here.
That area all the way down.
All the way down.
Correct.
So, and this is your one historic.
Correct.
So this gets the, you may not believe it, but this gets the exact same management regime, short of the runway and taxiway, as the rest of the grassland. I don't mow them on different, necessarily on different
mowed.
schedules. Well, no, it was mowed in the exact same time.
It's not mowed.
It just grows back differently. When we manage not mowing, it gets mown once.
Maybe I'm not talking, so maybe we're
It's this whole area, I believe. Yeah.
This area has disinvegetated, maybe to let you, I believe this has significantly different vegetation.
Your eyes don't deceive you. You are seeing some different plants out there, but it's how they're responding to a mowing done at the exact same time of year.
Because of it, there is no natural inclination for
It's less
anyone
likely
to
to crash
go in
through
there.
there, sure.
No one uses it. And that's my point. I think we can agree it's much less likely in this area than this area.
Well, yeah, so you had the infraction here.
And that, I'm suggesting we put something in
And
the
I'll-
bar. But let me finish, because what I'm saying in this area is, because it's so unlikely, it's not perfect, but it's so unlikely, is it not possible that in your judgments to make a compromise to this group, that taking down that fence will not result in any, what I would call, permanent damage to that standpoint?
Okay, so probably that initially, the big problem is if you take down a section of said fence, the rest of the fence becomes almost obsolete. It provides some protection from different avenues, but if you have a way, and I know you're thinking that this is going to be a vegetative gate, that nobody's going to cross over and want to walk into the grassland. But I believe that that was a huge risk from a land management standpoint, and I would have to weigh that out. In terms of gates, we actually have a pilot gate right here where they tie down. We have one gate here, and we have one gate here.
Right.
So actually the pilots have no reason to concentrate to any corner. They could go in
But
any
they do.
direction.
But they do. I've been there
Well,
17
actually-
years. How many years have you been going to this field?
Well, I'm not trying to compare how long I've been here.
But I'm
just
telling
stating-
you, the pilots congregate right here. We've only had, as far as I know.
Well, I can only
this
speak
year, 3.
to my time here.
Okay.
So I put in gates at the extents, and when the pilots register with us, they're told to park down here. We had a plane here recently with an emergency landing. Thank goodness the runway was open.
No plane ever parks by the hangar.
There is never. We've
Never.
been there for.
Okay.
Either car by
Okay,
car
okay,
now.
listen, let him finish.
Wait, please.
Feel-
Well, everybody.
Please, no, please.
But anyhow,
So I can tell you-
my point again, we disagree. We disagree so about one major piece. Yours is that we have to fence in the entire 72 acres to get a compliance that will.
30.
No.
It's, inside the fence is only 27 acres.
Whatever,
It's
I
45, well, I'm-
27 acres.
It's 45 acres
45
outside of
acres,
the
I
fence.
know, but it doesn't,
Usable.
it's not usable. So what I think
All
I'm
right.
trying to say, please let me finish.
Please hurry, because we've been at this a while, and
I agree, and I
this
think
is
it's
a new
very
topic, so
important.
let's finish up on it.
Well, I don't think we've had agreement here. I haven't heard from
I don't think we're
Russell.
gonna get an agreement, here's my point, I guess.
Well, I'm saying, I've said I'd like to understand, is that area, in your opinion, threatened by human traffic?
I think the area is considered a sandplain grassland, is protected the same way the rest of the sandplain grassland is protected. And based on the history of the property, it's hard to predict where people are going to use and put paths. I mean, I didn't predict, I've been here at the land bank for almost 20 years, and there are several paths on that property that I would not have predicted would appear. Some years I come out there and I think, well,
So in your
why is
judgment-
this path here now? I don't understand. Why would someone need to get in that direction? So I can't predict whether people would or wouldn't use that, but
But
I
you
can
can
say
have a
that based on the previous uses out there, that there is that potential.
That
Yes.
people would walk in and get trapped.
You think that there's a potential, let me ask, I'm not sure, I'm sorry, there's a potential
We
for
could
people
put
to walk
cameras
through
there
there.
and
Well, what I don't
we should put
understand
cameras
is,
in there.
and I'd say it to the group, what I don't understand is,
Seal and film.
are we looking for 100% compliance? And if it's 100% compliance you're looking for, you have to do the whole thing. If it's 100% compliance, then no plane with passengers can land there. Because you will not be able to control those passengers when they get out of the plane, no matter which touchdown. If it's 100% compliance, you cannot have people sampling again. Why is it that the goal of this group is to get 100% compliance as opposed to we can maintain and improve this area? We can improve it versus what it was 5 years ago.
All
by
right, thank
working
you very
together.
much. I think we've heard from you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak briefly?
Hi, Celia Gillis. I'm curious, I've been on the Natural Heritage website quite a bit, and it seems like they really encourage passive use of properties. I'm wondering, do they recommend fencing in all properties that have species of special concern? Is that something they recommend?
I don't work with natural heritage as often as Julie.
Because it seems like, I don't know, it just seemed from looking at it that they were like, we're conservation, we're against development, but we encourage hiking, walking. It doesn't seem like it would be something that they would actually recommend in fencing and.
They ask of us that we manage these priority habitats in a way that the species are protected. And so if that means we can just put up simple signs to say, stay out of the dunes, or don't cross this grassland or enter the grassland, then if that's all that's required to manage the recreational use and keep it to the trails where it is designed, then they'll accept that. If we as managers are not able to keep the passive recreational use to the trails which they have approved, they haven't approved the use of the grassland. What they approved was the perimeter trail and the use of it as an airport. So they didn't approve the entry of the public recreational use into the grassland. And so their request of us is that we manage our properties in the way that we have presented them to them. And in this case, we were not able to do that. We were not able to keep the passive recreational use restricted to the trails, which led, as you are aware, to the fence.
Right. And
One
I
or
just
two
want
more
to
comments
additionally
and then we're
say
done,
that,
because
I
we-
think saying that people are chomping all over the area is a bit of an exaggeration. I think there were the cutoff paths that people use, and I think every time I hear that people are chomping all over it, it's like, it's a misstatement, and for the most part, people stayed on the trails with 2 additional cutoff trails, and.
Way in the back.
that's it.
Hi, my name's Lucy Abbott. My family's been there for a lot longer than the airport. I've been walking across it. I'm not a dog person, but I've been walking across there, and what I loved about it was its openness. It had a fabulous, just nice feeling for walking. That's gone. Now it looks like a prison, okay? When I asked, okay, I'm sure you must have had reasons to do this, to make this huge drastic change, I was told there were a couple of studies, one in 2014, one in 2017. I got the results of the 2014, very interesting, in a format that we could read. But 2017, can't get it. Natural Heritage says it's too secret. Ordinary people can't see it, because I guess we'd have to know where all the individual plants were, and we're not allowed. Okay, if the Landbank staff did this research, how is it possible that the Landbank staff did not summarize it using the methodology they used in 2014 so that ordinary people like me and like you could see what the research shows? Why was this drastic measure so necessary, and is it supported by research?
It's a standard operating procedure, I understand, from
Is what?
And
that you don't itemize plants in.
I'm not asking to see that.
Julie, do you want to
Yeah.
describe your results and where they're?
The 2017 isn't a study as much as, not a study as the 2014 was. The 2014 was a study that the commissioners asked me to perform. 2017 is a survey that I perform hopefully every year, sometimes not every year, depending on the season, of the rare species. So it's a survey of rare species. The data is submitted. There isn't a report that's written. It's raw data that is submitted to Natural Heritage through their electronic submission system. So there isn't and the methodology used is the methodology that the state gives us. So it's not, I didn't use a special methodology to survey it. I surveyed it as the state always instructs me to, especially if we want to do something, they'll say, all right, well, you have to submit your results for your survey of the rare species walking every 5 feet transects. So that's what we did, and that's what we submitted to them, the raw data. I didn't write a report of the species information because that's all the state needed and that's how they wanted it.
Okay, but we're
And
members
that's what
of
the fence was based on, the
Right,
location of it.
But we're members of the public. We, I think, would like you, and I'm assuming the commissioners would, we'd like to see the data that shows that there was such degradation in Tradewinds for the endangered species that this huge, enormous change is necessary. This isn't a little change. This is kind of wipes out my interest in going there again to walk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mine isn't controversial, well, go ahead. If you have
I'm just saying, I'm another one that I don't walk my dog. They have been coming there for 20,
Can you speak up?
I've been coming for 23 years. And I come there because, forest trails are fine, but I come there as the last speaker did because it's a serene place. I love the openness of this place. And I would walk on the designated trails. And I just can't, I couldn't come earlier this year because I had some health problems. I came this weekend and I got there and I was aghast. And I feel that something has just been taken away from me. And I don't understand why you can't just turn, if you didn't have enough compliance, why better enforcement wouldn't be enough? That's what we do, you know.
We tried for a long time.
Maybe you didn't try hard enough, or maybe you need to try some more. But, you know, conservation is a priority, but it's not the only priority. And we are, as members of the public, are entitled to something as well. You are a public agency. And you are responsible for the public good. And why you would just go to the most extreme kind of fencing us out is just beyond my imagination, how you could do that.
I'm going to call it closed to the public.
Well, I'd like to say one thing.
No.
Well, I spent $5,000. I'm going to be heard. I'm not going to shut up.
You've had your turn.
You stated this land was bought for conservation. It was bought to be an airport. It doesn't even come under the Conservation Commission. So stop saying that. And stop trying to paint everybody here as anti-conservation. We're all good people.
Nobody's painting.
I don't think we've done that.
You paint us every article in the paper. His minutes will make us all the evil dog owners that have no respect for the environment.
All right. Thank you very much.
I respectfully.
Bill, last
Yes, thank you. We need to do a better job, both of us, okay? I asked the superintendent's office, how often does the Landbank get the schools involved? Never. Other educational organizations like the museum, the trustees of the reservation, Sheriff's Meadow, Felix Neck, Island Grove, connect to end violence for MC. So that was a response. I hope there's an education component, unless that has nothing to do with conservation. I think it's very important. But there's a difference between conservation and preservation. My gut reaction right now is that you might as well put a bubble over the field. Because that's what you've done, essentially done. And that is an extremist view that the community is not entitled to be put upon, and I don't think will stand. So let it be said, we support conservation, we don't support someone's science experiment. And finally, my last point is when I walked around with Ian and Julie, I talked about the lady slippers. Oh, the lady slippers. Oh, we could mow them, we could make trails, these are what we were aware of them. Oh, because they're not gonna grow there again, they're not that endangered. Come on, you make judgment calls all the time, and you could wipe the lady slippers out, but you can't open an unused path, so I'm gonna leave you with that.
Thank you.
Just about the waste buckets.
No, leave.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, just a
No, really, we've been around this.
I'm not making a comment, I'm just asking if there's if you would allow some of us to work with Ian, for example, as he goes forward, making it more user-friendly. We never felt we had any input, and we would love to be helpful.
Yeah, I hear from Phil multiple times.
Well, yeah.
Well, it's more than me, as you.
No, I do welcome, a big part of my position, whether it's Tradewinds or otherwise, is speaking with the people of the island, with neighbors, with users. So I'm always open to that.
Could you set up a meeting, or could we approach you and ask you to do a meeting with us? About the changes that you're gonna make?
If we get to that point. I mean, I certainly.
But you presented the changes like it's gonna happen, so.
Yeah, we would love to be involved in that, I mean,
Of course.
And he has your information, so he can
I'll
call
make
you.
sure, yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, and with
Is
that,
there anywhere on the website that gives information about when, like if you would be interested in being on the commission, when you would sort of pursue that?
The commission isn't elected, is
Right, I know, but there's nothing on the website that says when the elections are, or how you apply, or.
Well, that's in your
Here in April of
town.
every
You
year.
talk to the town.
Okay.
You have to talk to your town, yeah.
Okay, all right, great.
It's Oak Bluff and
Thank you.
Edgertown this
this year. Next year.
Next.
So are you gonna be accepting the recommendation,
We're
modifying
going to
it?
start our meeting soon, as
Okay.
soon as you stop talking.
Yes.
And
That's a good way to put
relinquish
it.
the field so that we can have our meetings. You can stay if you'd like, but we're going to.
Thank you.
You want to go on meeting? Yeah, sure. Can I just see him?
Stay for the meeting.
Do
you mind if I leave?
No.
Mind if I leave? No, go ahead. I'm gonna stay as long as I can. All right.
August 6th.
You want these? I'll visit with you
We don't really
tomorrow.
have them emailed to us.
I know you're going to, no, we're in the middle of the meeting.
All right.
This is not the administrative time. The administrative time is 9 to 4.
All right.
Approve the minutes yet?
Approval of the minutes of August 6th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
That's what I'd like to see.
Is there discussion on the minutes? Which will be emailed to you because we all got them emailed to us and we can email them to you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Transfer fee revenues.
Something that ended up.
Are we gonna talk anymore
Yes, we
about?
are at next.
Yeah, well, yeah, that should be in the
As soon as we're in the meeting. Let's get. Gonna do our business first and then we're gonna talk about it.
Do we have the, oh, thank you, James. Oh, thanks. Oh.
Take mine.
Still in front of the camera.
And following me.
That green hollow one, is that just an independent transfer? On the 7th.
Well, if he was paid, we understood that it was not being spent.
Yeah, that's the name of it, the last name is independent.
You know so?
Which one are you talking about?
Chicago.
Well, I'll see who is under the LLC, but there was a fee paid because there was cash exchange.
Yeah.
And what's the property?
This property is located on Edgertown Harbor, which is 6 Green Hollow Way, which is where Katama Road and Hurley Creek Road split in that area.
Wow.
Down by the insurance.
Any other questions on that weekly registrar's report? Next week's. First down here. Anybody have any questions on that one?
No, that's good.
All right, first item on the agenda is the report from Julie and Ian. Is there any commissioner who would like to put on the table a motion?
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank you for the report, and it cleared up a lot, cleared up a lot of stuff. And I also think, while people may not agree, I think your recommendations are some of the things we can do to make it a more usable place. The key thing that came across to me now being there and also reading the report is it's such a mixed use place. It's not just dog folks that use it, runners use it, bikers use it, just, people who are afraid of dogs. I mean, everybody, you get the gamut of everybody. And it's a really important open space in Oakland. I mean, it's a lot of beautiful open space, which would have otherwise been probably turned into another subdivision or something. So, and I really appreciate the trails. My husband and I the trails are probably better than most of the trails I go on of any of the properties.
I was happy.
It was it's very well maintained, and we walk all over. And this is flatter. It's more accessible for people who aren't runners but who walk and have to be careful walking. I think I think it's beautiful. And I'm not a dog person, but I love the fence. I think the fence is beautiful. And you walk all the way around, you're able to look into the field. So for all of those mixed use reasons, not everybody has a dog and a leash, but while I was there were several couples. Their dogs were on leashes and they were all walking and seemed perfectly happy and, so thank heavens that the Landbank was asked to preserve that. Because all my husband kept saying is, my God, can you imagine how many houses could have been here? If it would have been a subdivision, nobody would have had access to it. And then I looked up as I said, I worked on the dog park thing, and I looked that up, and I realized that, urban areas do allow for dog parks. They're different sizes, but all of them are fenced in. Because with mixed use, not everybody, has a dog. Dogs can get into fights. So, they really have to have some controlled methodology around it. So I just appreciate the report and the place. And I also really think if people will give it a shot, and you're very willing to work and create a meeting spot, to put nice benches, to put places for people to congregate. It's not the entire field. It's not what they were used to, but I'm hoping that maybe that will help alleviate some of the painfulness. And you acknowledge the painfulness that this has caused. A lot of people are really upset because it's changed, and it's changed in ways. But, it was it's however many acres, and it was all open before. It was just complete, and most people probably didn't run anywhere they want it, all over it. But it's a different feel now because it's, part of it is protected, so. So that would be, I would just say we should forge ahead and try to get as much work done as we can to create that space. And I know you're full on out all over the island, but if we can do something, I think the recommendations go there.
So your motion is to accept the recommendation?
Yeah.
And I would second that motion.
Can I just comment briefly to follow what you said? I was really empathizing with the lady in the yellow shirt here as a former walker of small dogs. One of them had a genetic defect so that his mouth was only open, frozen this far. And also because I often walk now that I don't have dogs with older people, and I don't walk every year, so I'm often very surprised at my own huffing and puffing as I walk that whole route. And the problem is not just a gathering place for people to be neighborly, but also of having signage and benches. The signage particularly saying, this is how far you are, you might turn back now, kind of implying that anyway, would be very, very helpful to me and some of the people who walk there who find that maybe, I still run, but some people don't even walk that I walk it the trail with, and it's beautiful as far as we go, but we often get in over our heads. So I think that's a terrific addition to that, not just the benches, but the signage and some indication of how far you are and where you should turn back. Whether it's a separate loop or just reminding you that you're not halfway there yet would be a great touch. And I think that might answer her concerns as well.
I would, in addition to thanking Ian and Julie for my tour of Tradewinds, I want to echo everything that Wes just said and that Sarah said. I think that the plan you've come up with is a wonderful way to address what's missing. Doesn't give the users what they loved and had, but in terms of a function, it preserves it. And one of the things I loved when we were there, and I walked around a little in that area, was there is some shade there. So, and if, as you said, you have more choice what you could do about the oaks than the pines, but even leaving some of the pines to provide a little shade means that you can sit and converse on the kind of weather we had, was it last week or the week before, that was called drink the air through a straw and pray. So I was really quite impressed, and I had not really come up, in my own thinking, trying to come up with solutions, I had not envisioned that, and I think it's a wonderful way to address one of the issues, or several of the issues really.
I was just going to sort of state for the record that that a compromise is to have 70 acres, 40, some of which are unencumbered by a fence, that are open from all sides for neighbors to come in, and I think if there are other ways of exposing the grasslands more, I'd encourage any things that would, any extensions of paths or whatever that could make the walker get a bit more view of the runway than otherwise. I'd encourage that exploration also.
And anyone else?
I agree with what Sarah said. I do think it's sad that there's no crossover with the people's neck and one side to the other side, but at the present time, I can't see how that's possible with what has happened out there in the past.
And I do, just to echo what Wes was saying about the mileage, I think that is brilliant to have a sign that says, you've come this far from the trailhead. Tired? Have a seat and or turn back. Right?
Is there a motion?
There's a motion second to
Accept the report.
Okay.
And is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
I do think we should review this in about a year to see how it's working.
I would
out.
exactly.
That's actually good. Can we
Would you
amend
calendar
or
that, James, please?
put that in as part of the motion? That, I think, is a really good recommendation.
I'm sure it should, I mean, as you said, Ian, you're out there a lot. There's going to be work out there. We'll see from the neighbors, we'll get input, we'll see how it's working. If it's given any credence to the fact that people can come, socialize, walk, also sit.
Yeah.
I also wanted to say to you, Ian, that although I don't know that it was kind of a requirement, I loved the fact that you solidified the split rail fences on county roads so that the dogs or children can't just run out there when they're, I mean, thank you, that's forward thinking.
All right, transfer fee hearing. Number one, Tara Morris, Town of Edgartown.
You're opening the hearing at 5:18.
Is there a motion to open? I am open. The hearing is open.
Okay.
All right.
So Tara Morris purchased property 2 years ago, and as a result of the exemption, is required